Hi, welcome to another edition of the End Game where we discuss race and sports with an emphasis on Michigan State, but we go in other areas also. Today, my guest host is Leah Kamina. She's a Michigan State legacy, and we're proud to have her on here, pinch hitting as a guest host. Leah, tell us a little bit about your background and what you're doing now.
Well, it's 2015 Michigan State grad, go green. I decided to go to Michigan State mainly for the journalism program, which is what I am doing now. I am a anchor and reporter with KITV4 Island News, the ABC affiliate here in Hawaii. But I kind of found my way to Michigan State through my dad, who is also an alum, and also from Hawaii. So that's what we're going to be talking about here. We've got a lot of Hawaiians who've made their way over to Michigan and braved the cold and are now doing awesome things in the world.
Right, and her dad is Carter Kamina, who was the 11th of the 11 Michigan State Hawaiian pipeline players. Duffy recruited 10 of them. We have also with us Lucy Wiedemeyer, whose husband Charlie Wiedemeyer is going into the Polynesian Football Hall of Fame in a couple of weeks. And Charlie is another one of the Hawaiian pipeline players. Welcome, Lucy. We have you out here from the Bay Area. How are you today?
I am very good, Tom. Thank you. Thank you for being a part, allowing all of us to be able to talk together. This is really special. We all remember the old days at Michigan State, and when we get anybody get a care package, even if it was just sign in, everybody share.
Okay, and then we have the great Bob Apisa. Baba's not on our screen, but he's going to join us with the audio. 21st century technology is a little bit hard for Bob. But Bob is the first Samoan All-American. He was recruited by Duffy Daugherty out of Honolulu Farrington. He played on the 65 and 66 teams. He's a member of the Michigan State Hall of Fame, the Polynesian Football Hall of Fame. And he's basically the godfather for Polynesian football because the Hawaii was lightly recruited when Duffy recruited it. And now there's just been a wave of Polynesian athletes that permeate all levels, coast to coast. Bob, how you doing?
I'm good, fine, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. I want to say hello to Leah and also to Lucy as well. Aloha.
Aloha, Robert.
Hey, Uncle Bob.
And then, as you noticed, Leah said Uncle Bob, and I've heard her refer to Uncle Charlie. So, Leah, sounds like everybody from Hawaii is part of the family. Talk about that and introduce our next guest here.
Well, I was about to say, we got to introduce Uncle Tommy over here, Uncle Tommy Kulukukui Jr. And Uncle Tommy, if you can tell us a little bit about your dad, Thomas Kulukukui Sr., because without him and his friendship with Duffy Daugherty, none of us would really be here. It's because of their friendship that the Hawaiian Pipeline was created.
Yes, aloha to all my friends who I've known for many years. I'm also a Michigan State graduate class of 1967. My father, after the Second World War, was the head football coach and athletic director of the University of Hawaii, and became close friends with the coaching staff. And so by the 1950s, was already recommending football players from Hawaii to go to Michigan State, and Duffy Daugherty, the coach at that time, really set aside one slot on the football team for whoever my father recommended, and so he sent a number of Hawaiian football players. Probably the most famous of which was the Samoan Boulder. I call him the Boulder, Baba Pisa, because he predates the Rock. You know the Rock? Well, we had the Boulder before they had the Rock.
And the Boulder was in Hawaii 5-0 and Magnum PI.
Yes, he was.
Todd's dad and Duffy struck up a relationship when Michigan State played at Hawaii in 1947. So it's an amazing story about how they hit it off right away, and Duffy trusted Tommy's dad, to send them players, and they all turned out to be great players. Some of you made it to the NFL. Bob would have made it to the NFL if it wasn't for his injuries.
Yeah.
But the main reason we're getting together tonight is, Charlie's going into the Polynesian Hall of Fame for the class of 2021, and everything was delayed by COVID-19. So he's going in with the 2022 class, and that includes Tom's dad, Tommy Kaluka Kukui. Is that right? Close?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And he was the first Hawaiian player to earn All-American honors. He was honorable mention, I believe it was in 1935. He returned a kickoff against UCLA. And the great sports writer Grantland Rice dubbed him the Grass Shack. So that's where his reputation started. And so he's going into the Hall of Fame. And Lucy, talk about what it would mean to Charlie. Charlie, of course, passed away in 2010. Charlie battled ALS for 33 years. That's a disease that usually claims people in only, say, 1 to 3 years. And not only that, he continued to coach his high school football team at Los Gatos in the Bay Area, and was very successful at it. But Lucy, talk about what it would mean to Charlie to go into the Polynesian Hall of Fame. Also with Tommy Kalua Kukui as a mentor to all those guys.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot to share, because Charlie was one that he was a bit of a perfectionist, and he knew, playing at Punahou, every single player's position, what they were supposed to do on every play. And so after Michigan State, he actually played with the Lansing All-Stars, and he just went into that Hall of Fame a few years ago. So I was able to fly back and see all those old people. But they were mostly Michigan State guys. And so they had such a great time. But when he came out to coach football in California, his playbook was in his head. He never wrote anything down, and it was always astonishing. So let's see, in 1981, he had to go into a wheelchair, and someone donated a golf cart. So we were off on the golf cart, and the fun part about me driving it was he couldn't complain because he had taught me how to drive, because we met at Punahou when we were just kids. So it was really, I mean, I look back and I'm in awe of what we accomplished, and what he really showcased was not giving up, and in spite of the odds. And he always loved, as a football coach and even as a player, to go on that football field as the underdog. And as I went down there, I learned the strategy, and it just made the game so much more fun for me. To know, why a play didn't work, or, he'd tell one of the players, okay, next play, run to your other left, I mean, he'd tell the kids, my grandmother could run faster than you. And I'm relaying this, because he couldn't speak out loud. So I would watch his lips, and I would convey whatever he had said to the players or the coaches. And his offensive play calling, I mean, I had no classes on his style of coaching. So he would, start with one part of his play, and then he would add on, until he's about a mile down the road. And I'd say, I've forgotten the first part. Could we go over it again? So anyway, he was just extraordinary in his football mind. And as he was losing the ability to do things and had to rely on me, we worked on the humor. We worked on being able to laugh. And I'm sorry, interrupt me anytime, because I could speak for hours.
Leah, go ahead.
I just have a question. Did you, before you had to read his lips to communicate with the players on what the calls were, did you know as much about the game prior to that? I mean, I know you went to the games and you watched him play and you cheered him on, but did you know like all the ins and outs as much prior to having to be there?
That was the joy of being on the field, because when you're in the stands, you make assumptions of why a play didn't work. I've always loved football. My dad played football. My brothers played football. And yet you really don't know until you're in the trenches. And there were a couple times at practice when I would have to say, okay, time out, guys. I am going to take that player home. He's really sick. We're going. And, you know, in the early days, they wouldn't take water breaks. I'm like, guys, they need water. So they would bring the hoses from the other field and get the sled, you know, that I forget what you even call it. My brain's not working today, but and they would hook up all the hoses and turn them on and soak the boys and let them have water. Anyway, yeah, the strategy was really interesting. And the amazing thing is he never had to call it, well, a timeout. Well, there was one time. Okay, so one time he told me to call Max, and I'm looking up and down the field, and we didn't have a lot of players. So I'm thinking, I don't see a Max. He had to call a timeout because it was maximum protection. But he had to hire me back because he didn't have anybody else to read his lips.
He couldn't fire you for too long. Tom, you have a good story about playing JV football against Charlie, right?
Right. I knew Charlie when we were youngsters, and we played on different teams, but we played youth football and youth basketball, football and baseball. I'll tell you a 30-second baseball story. I was playing third base. Charlie was on the other team. He's playing for Punahou. I might have been playing for another school, for Iolani. And he hit a ball and was on rounding second base and coming to third. And our left fielder made this perfect throw. And the throw beat him by about 10 feet. And Charlie slid in. I had the ball down there. He was out, dead out. He got within about a foot of the bag, and he kicked the ball out of my glove. The ball rolled away. The umpire went out. Oh, no, safe. And he stood up and brushed himself off with this big smile. And I just shook my head because that's Charlie. He's going to find a way to beat you. Right?
That's a good one. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
And then I was a
And
quarterback.
that's what Duffy Doherty always said, that Charlie was so instinctive, right, Tom?
Yes,
and Lucy
he
and
was
Bob?
instinctive. He knew exactly what to do. And he always had a smile.
Yeah.
He stood up with a smile, and you can't be mad at the guy. You got to smile and admire him. And then I was the quarterback for the Kamehameha Schools JV football team. I was a starting quarterback, and we played for the junior varsity championship at our field against Punahou, and Charlie was a 9th grader. And game was tied in the 4th quarter. Late, we got the ball back. The score was 8-8. I'll never forget this. And I was doing my Denver Broncos march down the field. We were gonna win in the last minute thing, and I rolled out with about a minute left to play. Had a guy in the open, threw him the pass. I didn't know that the coach had put Charlie in on defense, because usually he wasn't playing defense when he was a 9th grader. And so he jumped up about 10 feet in the air, intercepted the pass, and ran it back. And we all know who's the last guy who has the opportunity to make the tackle, and that's the quarterback who threw the pass. So I sat there after he faked me out. I sat there dejectedly and watched the back of his numbers as he ran into the end zone, winning touchdown.
Yeah.
Tease him every once in a while about that.
Those were the days.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
And my father, just to carry that one step further, my father, after he stopped coaching the University of Hawaii, ran an insurance agency. But many parents and athletes asked him to give individual attention and individual coaching. And I can recall my father with his tie loosened down at Ala Moana Park next to the beach on one session coaching Charlie.
Yeah, I can imagine. And he was so able to absorb everything.
Oh yeah. very
Remember, that was astonishing.
Bob, what kind of Charlie stories do you have? Or talk about both Charlie and Tommy going into the Polynesian Hall of Fame, joining you. You went in 2018.
Well, I want to preface my remarks by saying that, you talk that there are two families, the Kaulukukuis and the Winmars. They're iconic in the state of Hawaii, in the history of Hawaii. Tommy was my mentor when I went to Michigan State. He had brought prior to that, he brought Dick Kenny, Roger Lopez, Larry Cundiff, back then, way back then. Dick Kenny and myself and Charlie, along with Jim Nicholson. So, you know, he has a legacy of bringing guys to, because, you know, when I was a senior in high school at Farmington, and I was called to the principal's office, and I knew right there and then that I had to make a choice between USC, the Trojans, or Michigan State. So as I walked into the office, and I just saw Tommy Kaulukukui there, so I thought that, you know, SC went in a different direction. So, you know, I inked my John Henry and I committed to Michigan State. And I had about 42 offers. Penn State was one of them, SC and Michigan State being the last. But when I met with Duffy, he convinced me that you come to Big Ten, you're going to carry the ball. If you go to SC, you're going to be blocking back from Mike Garrett or O.J. Simpson. Okay, so I had to factor all that in. And my mom wanted me to go to SC because it's closer to Hawaii. It's easier for her to go back and forth. But I wanted to play in the best conference in the country. And my assistant football coach, Eki Espinda at Farmington, played at Purdue. And he told me, he said, Bob, if you really want to get your collet kicked, go to Big Ten, because that's where all big boys are. The Butkuses, the Dick Butkuses, the Grabowskis, the Red Grange, all those people, Hopalong Casting. But that's the reason why I wanted to play in the best conference there were, and at that time. And I was grateful that Tommy signed me that day, and he called Duffy. And so Duffy called John McKay over at SC, and he said, you know, Bob's already committed to Michigan State. So John McKay, of course, they were competitors. He just didn't say anything. He just hung up the phone, and little did I know that the assistant coach from SC was in Los Angeles. He missed his flight to sign me up in Hawaii. He forgot there's a 3-hour difference between the West Coast and Hawaii. So he caught a late flight, and he flew in. And I had already committed to Michigan State. And so he called John McKay. And this was shared with me by Tommy Kaulukukui Sr. And before he passed. And he said, you know, he called John McKay, and he said, hey, you know, Bob Appice is already committed to Michigan State. Do you want me to come back now or come back later? He says, you know, just take your time. You're no longer involved with this program. You're no longer you hired right on the spot.
Wow.
Not because of me, but because he's done this before.
Yeah.
A little bit that I know. And, but I will say this. I have great respect for Tommy Kaulukukui Sr. He's fable. So is the Wiedemeyer family. They're fable. So I went to Michigan State, and I saw Dick Kenny there. And Dick Kenny, his mom is Kaulukukui. As a matter of fact, that's his nephew. But he didn't go there because of the tie. He went there because he wanted to play with the best. And Dick Kenny was the best kicker of all as a Bedford kicker. And then when Charlie came up in my sophomore year, and or my freshman year, because I'm a year ahead of Charlie, and I knew that we had something going there. And I you know, Charlie being the athlete of the decade in the state of Hawaii, the best athlete I've ever seen. pound for pound, pound for pound. He was the best athlete in football, basketball, baseball. And, you know, if he ran track, fine. I mean, that's his MO. He's just a great athlete. He's very, very agile. But not only that, but, you know, he's the type of guy that can make plays. And that made a big difference with Duffy. So when he came up, and my teammate, my classmate at that time was Jimmy Ray. And Jimmy is the kid from Fayetteville, North Carolina. And when Charlie came up, Jimmy says, we've got a real good quarterback here. Because he gave that praise to Charlie as well when he talked to me about that. And Charlie just ran circles in the green and white game. And I said, see, that's exactly the Charlie Whittemore I knew from high school. So, you know, the rest is history. But I'm just happy. I'm happy because I feel privileged to be associated with the Kaulua Quiz. I'm also associated with Charlie Whittemore. But after me came Carter Kamana. Those people from Hawaii, Jim Nicholson. Carter was a great defensive back. And he did wonders for Michigan State. And I know his legacy will speak for itself at Michigan State. So although we took the Peach Bowl this year, Michigan State played Pittsburgh and won the game. I want the defensive back. I can see Carter in a way. I can just see him playing. So from that standpoint, I'm very proud of them. I know these gentlemen. I know who they are, and I'm so happy in my life to even have an opportunity to meet them.
Leah?
I just love hearing all these stories. It's so great to hear and hear all of your guys' time and how everything kind of came about. I feel like I wouldn't be where I am right now if it wasn't for my time at Michigan State, and I wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't for each and every one of you, because you guys all played such like an instrumental role. Like, I know it's because of Uncle Bob and Uncle Charlie that my dad wanted to go to state. So that's like, I know that's what kind of brought us all here. But as Auntie Lucy, I know Uncle Charlie, he did so much. And your guys' time with Los Gatos really inspired that whole community. I'm a 49ers fan, so I know that there is the 49ers Coach of the Week award that is named after Uncle Charlie. What did that award mean to him? And like to see that continue on, you know, even past the head coach that started it, what's that mean for your family?
Yeah, it's quite amazing to absorb an honor like that. And Charlie was very humble, so he was always embarrassed. He did not want to be the focus of anything, which made it tough as he lost, you know, the ability to do things. But Coach Steve Mariucci was the one that started it in Charlie's name, and he's a great old friend. And I think the blessing is that they are cheering on these coaches, showcasing them, not necessarily because they've won every game or, you know, their scores are high, but it's their heart and how they care about their teams, the kids, and how, you know, they teach leadership and dealing with difficulties and frustrations and, you know, when they don't win or when they miss a play or something like that, and really help them to see the bigger picture and know that it's your responsibility not to quit. It's your responsibility to do your best and to learn and be better. And I'm blessed because I'm still out there at the end of the season on the Niner football field presenting these awards. And it's just very heartwarming.
Yeah. Lucy, I interviewed Coach Mariucci about that, and he talked about what a team you and Charlie were, how devoted you were to each other. And of course, I'm sorry, I was remiss not introducing you at the beginning as Saint Lucy, because you just stood by Charlie. You stood by Charlie for so long and did so much And one of the things I learned when I wrote about you is that 80% of the spouses in ALS families leave their partner. And you've continued to be a support person, I think, for ALS groups. But just talk about what kept you and Charlie together there and how difficult it is for a lot of families.
Wow. Really what kept us together was our faith and our wonderful community of support, of people coming over to build ramps and widen the shower and, be there for us. In the beginning, Charlie wanted no help. He was embarrassed and didn't want to be a part of anything. But, we had 2 little kids, and I know how much he loved coaching. And so we just took one day at a time in those early years. And I remember one time he said he could see it wearing on me because it was hard to carry. I would carry him, and it was getting harder for me to carry him, even though he was losing weight. But a very, very difficult time was when he said to me, I just think you guys would be better off without me. And I'm like, okay, what do you say to someone who, they've been told they're going to die, and now they're just seeing, how difficult things are. And I was just praying in my head, give me words, God, give me words. And I said to him, we'd much rather have you like this than not at all. And that was a real turning point. And our children were amazing. Our son was barely 5, and he just took to his dad, grab his hand. We never had to say anything or ask for anything. And then when he began mimicking, when things got tough, he would mimic Andy Bumatai. And so we'd have great humor in spite of, difficulty. So, we really focused on the positive and not what he would lose. We tried different apparatus for his hands and his feet, and then they didn't work, and never mind, just keep going. And his kids would come over, his players would come, and they loved him, because he loved to tease them. And I think that really was enormous. Our community, our small community just, was there for support.
Is to see how big of an impact Uncle Charlie has had on, your family and your extended family of players, and just see this legacy that he's left behind. How awesome is that for you?
Well, it's wonderful because I am still at every football game. I speak at the, sometimes at practices. They've named the All-Star game in his name. We have it coming up February 5th, but I'm still very much in touch with, we have a lot of players who played for my husband who now their boys are playing. So there's a lot of family. It's very much Ohana. And it reminds me of our days at Punahou when, you'd be in the stands and it was, the community was there, even though, many of the fans, their kids had already graduated. So it's quite marvelous. We get beautiful letters and calls from people who have gone to, off to college or off to the business world, and they run into some tough stuff. And they will call and say, Coach, I thought of you. I didn't give up, or I'm not going to give up, or I'm going to try again. I mean, just really beautiful stories that warm your heart.
Awesome.
Hey, let's talk about the 1966 Ohio State game. Bob, you can talk about it, and Tom, you can talk about it too. Somebody changed the play in the huddle, right?
It was great. I think the week before we departed to go down to Columbus, Ohio, and play Ohio State, and we're ranked number 1 in the country. I saw Kaipo, Kenny, mess around. He and Charlie were messing around over there. So I kind of tried it over there. I said, hey, bro, come on, get serious. We're leaving in a couple of days. We're going down and play Ohio State. And at that time, Woody Hayes they were ranked. They're one of the teams that I will never forget because it was a rainy, drenched day, muddy, And when you get down on a 3-point stand, your hand will sink down in the mud. And we had maybe a minute and a half left, and Duffy decided to sneak Jimmy Ray 3 times. And well, let me back up a little bit. Anyway, during that time when Dick Kenny and Charlie were practicing, they concocted a play, little to my knowledge that they did, in which Charlie would intentionally fumble the ball
Okay.
and then pass it to Dick Kenny. So it just so happened.
Let me interrupt a second, Bob. Charlie was the holder on the kicks. So for the viewers, go ahead.
That's correct. And it just so happened that we were in Columbus on a very drenched, rainy day. And it was a perfect situation for both of them to concoct this play up. So, Keipo looked at Charlie, and they made eyes at each other. I'm blocking there, okay? I scored, I think it was a minute left now. It was 8-6 or 9-8 rather.
9-8, right.
9-8 because Dick had kicked a field goal prior to that. It was 8-3. So now it's 9-8. But Duffy didn't know this, and Dick Kenny and Charlie Whittemire concocted the play and said, where the snap comes back to Charlie. Charlie fumbled it like he did in practice and passed off to Dick. In the meantime, there was the arm rush, and Dick just went to the right a little bit, so it drew the defense on that side. And Charlie ran over to the left. He swung out on the left, and Keipo, being a pitcher at Michigan State, allowed the perfect pass to him. So, now the score is 11-8, which is a 2-point conversion. Anyway, the very next day, there was in the papers, back home in the papers, and it said, Hawaiians 11, 8.
Yeah,
So it was a great show we had.
yeah. And what people have to know about that is this is 1966. Hawaii didn't have a Division I football program until 1974. So Hawaiians 11, Ohio State 8 was pretty funny. But the whole island kind of adopted Michigan State as their team. Isn't that right, Todd?
Yeah, I think that's correct, because I think your opening remark that Hawaii was lightly recruited by major football teams except for the West Coast is correct. Some Hawaiians, of course, went to the interior of the mainland, but not a lot of them played major football. And it was Hawaiian 11, by the way, and Ohio State 8, because 6 of those points were scored by the fullback, Baba Pisa.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the kids from Hawaii scored all the points.
Yeah, 6 points by Bob, 3 points by Dick Kenny on an earlier field goal, and then 2 points by Charlie catching the 2-point
That's
conversion.
correct.
Exactly.
Hawaiians
Exactly.
11, Buckeyes
Yeah.
8.
Now a big part of the history of Michigan State football is that Duffy's teams in the 1960s were college football's first fully integrated rosters, and Michigan State had a history of integrated rosters based on its Midwest talent. But in the 60s, Duffy started recruiting the segregated South, and he get college football All-Americans like Bubba Smith and Gene Washington and George Webster, Jimmy Ray, the South's first Black quarterback to win a national title. So for the Hawaiian kids, it wasn't so much about escaping segregation, but it was about opportunity to play in the Big Ten. And just, Bob, I guess, talk about this, about how the team just got along together. It was just, the only colors were green and white, right?
Yeah.
Because, back in those days, in the early 60s, and, Martin Luther King was marching for civil rights in Selma, Alabama. He was marching in Montgomery, Alabama. So we can vote. People of color can vote. And Duffy had to go south of the Mason-Dixie line to recruit Jimmy Ray from Fayetteville, North Carolina. He had to go south of the Mason-Dixie line to recruit George Webster from Anderson, South Carolina. He had to go south of the Mason-Dixie line to get Bubba Smith from Beaumont, Texas, because these gentlemen couldn't attend a mixed school or an all-white school like Texas or Clemson or North Carolina State or North Carolina. So they came up north, and we coalesced together as a team, and we found a family. And those of us came from Hawaii. We looked at each other. We knew that Duffy he was like a puzzle maker. He would fit you in where you can best help the team. And that's why, it's a great athlete. You have to be a great athlete to go from quarterback to wide receiver and then back to quarterback. Charlie did that because everything was difficult. And but he did that. And to look at Dick Kinney matriculating up there, and those of us who went to school there, and we got the most of what Duffy did. And out of my class, we have 17, full scholarship guys on my class. And 7 of those 17 guys were fullbacks. And he did that for a purpose. So we can weed each other out. And one will go, George Chatlis went to defensive end, Mitch Court went to defensive back. Norman Jenkins was a pulling guard, so was Tony Connie. But those, he'll find a place for you where you can best help the team. And I'm sure that he would employ the same thing with Carter, Kamana, and those people, because the Kamanas, I've known Carter. I know John, his brother John Squeeze, his father John Squeeze, the old man, Leah's grandfather Squeeze. And I have great respect for their abilities. I have great respect for that family. But I do know this. Probably did things that he ended up in backfield. He may, I don't know if maybe my mind is passing me because of my age, but the fact of the matter is he did a great job as a defensive back. And I do know I spoke one day when I was there. I think George Curtis was there and Bobby Williams was there. And I told them that we fought together. And that's basically it. Beyond all odds, whenever you go to Class A Stadium over in Lafayette, or whether you go to Ann Arbor and the big house over at Michigan, or whether you go down to Columbus to play Ohio State, you fight together. And without that game, without the 11-8, the 10-10 tie would have been a moot point. Nobody would watch that, okay? And we had 33 million people watching that game. And we had a no repeat rule at the time, so we couldn't go back to the Rose Bowl because we were there my sophomore year. And Notre Dame, Eric Parseghian did not sign a contract for a postseason game. So now you have 2 number 1 teams fighting out, and they stayed home. So we sent Purdue and Bob Greasy and all these guys, the second tier teams, to all the major bowls. Nowadays you have Cherry Bowl, you have Peach Bowls and all that. You only had 4 bowls back then, major bowls. That's the granddaddy of them all, which is the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, and I think it was the Fiesta Bowl or something. But anyway, it just goes to show how far we've progressed with an integration, how far we've gone or come this far, 50-some years ago, okay? And here we're everything that we've accomplished, I don't know if it's, we have to fight for that once again.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's wrap this up. so I'll make maybe some final comments about Charlie and Tommy going into the Polynesian Football Hall of Fame. First thing I want to say is my first trip to Hawaii was 1990 for the old Sean Akita Classic. Remember those, Tom? Those were great events. San Diego was sending. I was working at the San Diego Union Tribune, and San Diego teams were going over there, and I said I got to go check in on this because one year one of the San Diego high schools played St. Louis at Aloha Stadium. They had 27,000 fans. So I ended up making that annual trip about 6 years in a row. And if I had it to do over again, I would have sent my laptop back to the office, said, I'm not coming home. I'm staying over here in Hawaii.
Yeah.
But let me tell one final Charlie story, and then I'll pass it on to you guys. Lucy, one of the favorite stories you've told me about Charlie is whenever you guys would be out and about and he'd see a Michigan hat or a Michigan shirt, he'd make you complain, tell that person how ugly their helmets were.
University of Michigan.
Yeah,
No.
University of Michigan.
U of M's, yes, U
University
of
of
M's
Michigan.
helmet.
Yeah.
Yes,
What did
he
I
would.
say?
Okay.
So, yeah.
So
So you had to tell them about their ugly helmets, right?
every time, yes, my husband loved to make fun of University of Michigan's helmets. He said they're the ugliest helmets. But I have to also tell you that Duffy created quite the ohana. He was amazing to his players and all of us gals. He was just extraordinary, and he kept it up after we all graduated. He kept it up. He'd have a golf tournament every year. He'd, always was calling to see how Charlie was and really kept in touch. So that's quite something, for a big time Big Ten college coach. So we really loved him.
Tom, your final comments?
Yeah, I just want to take a step back, take a broader view that, the race issue in the 60s was a big issue. And Duffy did go down and bring up Southern players, but when the Hawaiians went there, they were not white either.
No, right?
You gotta remember that.
Yep.
They were in the Netherland.
Yeah.
They were neither white nor were they black. So we got to remember that. Yeah, they're tweener. You got to remember when they showed up, guys like Dick Kenny and Baba Pisa and Charlie and those guys, they had to fight their own battles
Mhm,
That's right.
mhm.
to make their own way. And I don't know the details, but I'll tell you that I learned very early after Baba Pisa got there that in practice there was a disagreement between him and the other black fullback. And in those days, the coaches let him fight it out. So after the other player figured out that he was fighting the Samoan from Kalihi, and that was a bad idea, everybody else figured out, don't screw around with the Hawaiians. Because I'm not taking crap from either whites, blacks, or any other color. That's my comment.
I will say one thing.
Yeah.
I'm coming home. I'm coming home next week on the 18th, and I'll be there for about 8 days. And to welcome the induction of the new inductees over at the Hawaiian Polynesian Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame, and to welcome the Ka'ulukukuis, the Wiedemeyers. That's an exclusive club because we have great athletes, not only from, that Hall of Fame takes in Polynesians throughout the country. You're not limited to one state. You're not limited to one school. It's throughout the country, whether you played in football, whether you played in college, whether you went to the NFL. The fact of the matter is you're Polynesian. And that's a great honor. I welcome this time for me to get back home, and I would welcome, to have the Wiedemeyers and the Ka'ulukukuis because they're welcome in that class. They're classy people.
Great. Leo, bring us home.
Thank
Well,
you.
I just feel honored to be a part of this, and I know my dad would love to hear all of this all these stories too. And I know for him to know that Uncle Charlie and Uncle Tommy Kulukui Sr. are getting into the Polynesian Hall of Fame, like that's a big honor. And I know he sends his wishes to everybody too. And I'm just proud to be a part of this legacy.
Okay, well, thanks for watching.
We're proud to have Carter there as well.
Okay, thanks for watching the End Game, and stay tuned to my website, tomshanahan.report. Share it with everyone you know, because it's all about Michigan State history, about football and how Michigan State led the way in the integration of college football. It's a story that's not well enough known, but it's a one that I'm going to keep putting out there. Thanks a lot.